Welcome back to another Explainer. So today, we're diving into a fascinating and frankly deeply psychological side of cybersecurity. We usually picture cyber threats as, malicious code or vulnerable software. But today, we're looking at a much more fragile system, the human mind.
Seriously, organizations spend absolute fortunes, millions upon millions of dollars on top-tier firewalls, complex encryption, the whole shebang. But what actually happens when your biggest vulnerability is just human nature? The reality is, our innate tendencies to trust people, plus our natural curiosity, well, they can render the most robust technical safeguards completely useless. It's literally the ultimate backdoor, especially if the person getting manipulated happens to have elevated privileges on the network.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today's Explainer. We're going to cover the human attack surface, the phishing family tree, impersonation and deception, setting digital traps, and finally, defending the human element.
All right, moving right along to Section 1, the human attack surface.
So, to set the stage, social engineering is the psychological manipulation of individuals to gain unauthorized access to information or systems by exploiting trust and curiosity. Notice how this isn't just one single tactic. It's actually a massive category of manipulative techniques aimed squarely at the human psyche. And look, these attacks don't just target the uninformed. No way. They are highly sophisticated, specifically designed to trick even the most intensely security-conscious people out there. Okay, on to Section 2, the phishing family tree. And honestly, this is where things get pretty overwhelming.
Let's look at the most common method, phishing. Attackers use email to fraudulently obtain private info using what's basically a devastating triple whammy. Step 1. The attacker poses as a vendor, like an online retailer, sending a fake order confirmation. The user naturally panics, right? They're thinking, wait, I definitely didn't buy that. So Step 2. In that panic, or maybe just thinking it's a routine order they completely forgot about, they click a link to track the order. Step 3. They land on a totally bogus webpage that looks 100% legit, and they're asked to punch in their credentials. Boom! Just like that, the attacker steals their data. This often leads to identity theft and could even drop nasty stuff like Trojans right onto their machine on the way out.
Now, the underlying psychological trick, it stays exactly the same, but the tactics are constantly evolving. Beyond your standard email phishing, we've got Vishing, or voice phishing. This happens over the phone or VoIP systems. You know the ones. Pre-recorded messages that sound exactly like your real bank asking to verify your info for your protection. Right. Then there's Smishing, which uses SMS texts. A huge example recently has been those fake texts telling victims to claim a link to claim a random Bitcoin account. So the medium changes, email, phone, text, but the core manipulation to steal your data is a constant.
While general phishing casts a really wide net, spear phishing is much more laser-focused. It targets specific groups or individuals inside an organization. And then we have whaling. Whaling is spear phishing taken to the absolute highest level. We're talking about targeting key stakeholders and senior execs, the CEOs, the CFOs. These whaling attacks are incredibly detailed. The attackers leverage a ton of research about their target, much of which, surprisingly enough, is just sitting out there freely available on the public internet.
Which brings us to Section 3, impersonation and deception. It is honestly wild how brazen these attackers can be to get you to trust them. First up is pretexting. This is where an attacker literally invents a completely fictional scenario, a pretext. They'll impersonate authorized personnel or outside vendors just to persuade a victim to hand over sensitive records. Then there's business email compromise, or BEC. Just imagine getting an urgent wire transfer request from your boss's actual email address. Except it's not your boss, it's an attacker who hijacked the account to authorize massive unauthorized fund transfers. And finally, brand impersonation. That's exactly what it sounds like, pretending to represent a trusted brand, like a massive tech company or a well-known bank, just to trick victims into giving up personal or financial info.
Now, there's a really critical and frankly often misunderstood nuance here, and that is intent. Misinformation is false or misleading information, sure, but it's spread without any malicious intent. Someone basically just got their facts wrong. Disinformation, on the other hand, that is intentionally deceptive. It's purposefully crafted and spread to create confusion or to cover up malicious activities. Grasping this element of malicious intent is absolutely crucial when evaluating the information we're constantly bombarded with online.
All right, moving into Section 4, setting digital traps.
Sometimes attackers don't even bother reaching out to trick you. They just lay a trap and patiently wait for you to make a simple, everyday mistake. The logic here is as brilliant as it is devious. Think of a predator waiting at a literal watering hole for its prey. That is a watering hole attack. Step 1. The attacker wants to breach a highly secure company, maybe a defense contractor, but their defenses are just way too tight. Step 2. The attacker figures out this secure company constantly buys materials from a smaller supplier, and that supplier's website has pretty weak security. So they infect the supplier's site. Step 3. Employees from the primary target visit their supplier's site as part of their normal daily routine. And Step 4. Bam! They click the wrong element, the malware triggers, installs on the client computer, and spreads right into the highly secure network. They totally bypass the fortress just by poisoning the well outside.
And this perfectly illustrates typo squatting. Notice that missing O in the first URL. Attackers know we all type way too fast and make errors. A typo squatter registers a domain that's just a common misspelling of a legitimate, trusted site. If you accidentally leave out that one single O, you aren't going to a helpful search engine. Nope. You're immediately routed to an attacker's server hosting malware meant to compromise your system. They are literally just taking advantage of basic human error. So how do we actually fight back? Let's look at Section 5, Defending the Human Element. We need some actionable mitigation strategies right now. Defending against social engineering requires this holistic triad of defense. First, technology. We absolutely must implement multi-factor authentication, use web browser phishing filters, and run robust anti-malware to block known bad sites. Second, training. Users have to be taught to verify identities through multiple channels. A super easy, quick check, just hover over a link in an email to see if the URL actually matches the institution. Also, users need to know that legitimate institutions will basically never call or email asking for private info. When in doubt, hang up or hit delete. Third, and honestly maybe the most important, security culture. Organizations have got to foster an environment where employees feel totally empowered to escalate doubts and question suspicious requests. Yes, even if an email looks like it came straight from the CEO. Which brings us to our final, fundamental challenge. We know we can patch vulnerable software, we can lock down open ports, and we can heavily fortify our digital networks. But knowing that attackers are constantly, relentlessly targeting our innate psychology, our trust, our curiosity, our simple typos, how will you continuously patch the human mind? It's a massive challenge every organization and individual has to face every single day. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay vigilant, and always verify before you trust. Catch you next time.